The Larson home sat on the edge of Brookville, Oregon, a quiet suburb where money dressed itself in moderation. Inside their dining room, laughter shimmered beneath the golden light of a chandelier that had survived 3 generations of the family. The long oak table groaned with platters of roasted duck, potatoes, and champagne glasses waiting for another toast. It was Elaine Larson's 65th birthday, and everyone had shown up: sons, daughters, in-laws, and grandchildren, everyone except the one person who truly belonged there. At the far end sat Sienna Larson, the eldest daughter. She was 33, polite, quiet, and perpetually underestimated. Sienna had brought her own gift, a framed photo of the old beach house their parents once loved. She'd even chosen the wrapping paper carefully, pale gold with white ribbon, subtle but elegant, the kind of gesture that always went unnoticed. The patriarch, Bradley Joseph Larson, cleared his throat and rose, holding his glass high. He was 68, retired from construction management, proud of the family he'd built with his bare hands. The air stilled, as it always did when he spoke. To Elaine he began, his voice thick with authority, 65 years young, still putting up with the rest of us. Laughter followed, light and obedient. He smiled at the sound, then his eyes shifted down the table, finding his eldest daughter. A spark of mischief gleamed there, the kind that usually made people brace. "And to our Sienna," he added, swirling his wine. Still fighting the good fight with that. He paused, pretending to forget the term. "What do you call it again?" "Oh right, your pajama laptop job." The laughter this time wasn't light, it was sharp. Her younger brother, Aidan Larson, dressed in his hospital administrator whites, chuckled into his napkin. Across from him, Brooke Larson Moss, the family's golden child, whispered something to her husband, Turner Moss, and both stifled grins. Their father's humor was law. Resistance was social suicide. Sienna's fingers tightened around her glass of sparkling water. Her jaw relaxed into a practiced smile, the same one she'd used since college when someone confused independent consultant with unemployed dreamer. "Bradley wasn't done changing the world from your couch, right?" he said, tilting his glass toward her. "That's the slogan." More laughter. Aunt Paula Rios even snorted. The sound echoed against Sienna's ribs like a knock on an empty room. Her mother, Elaine, caught her eye briefly and mouthed, "He's just kidding." That was Elaine's eternal role, to pad her husband's words with apology, to smooth over the splinters he left behind. Sienna swallowed hard. The taste of humiliation was metallic, like the rim of her glass. She'd tolerated jokes before, but tonight something inside her shifted. Years of being the family's quiet afterthought condensed into a single point of stillness. She placed her napkin neatly beside her plate. Her voice, when it came, was calm. "Happy birthday, Mom." The words were so ordinary that for a moment no one noticed she was standing. She pushed back her chair, straightened the sleeve of her blue blouse, and began to walk toward the doorway. The room fell silent, first from confusion, then from discomfort. Even the children stopped whispering. Bradley frowned. "Where are you going?" "Home," she said simply. "You're not even going to have cake?" Elaine asked, her voice fluttering with polite panic. Sienna paused long enough to glance back over her shoulder. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes carried decades. "I've had enough," she said softly. Then she left. The sound of her heels faded down the hallway, replaced by a heavy silence no one knew how to fill. Finally Bradley exhaled through his nose. "Well," he said, "looks like somebody's sensitive tonight." Laughter returned, quieter this time, tinged with unease. Someone poured more wine. Someone else made a joke about creative types. The family resumed eating, pretending the air wasn't thinner than before. But out in the cold under the porch light, Sienna stood motionless beside her car. Her hands trembled, not from anger, but release. She wasn't crying, she was breathing for the first time in years. As she slid into the driver's seat, she caught her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her face was pale but resolute. There was no drama, no slammed doors or shouted speeches. Just quiet certainty. Inside the house, through the half-drawn curtains, she could see her family still laughing. Bradley gesturing broadly, Brooke dabbing at her lipstick, Elaine collecting empty plates like peace offerings. For the first time in her life, Sienna realized something simple and devastating. She could disappear, and the Larson family would still eat dessert. She turned the key. The headlights carved 2 perfect lines of white down the driveway, slicing through the dark. The hum of the engine drowned out the muffled laughter inside, and as she drove away, she whispered under her breath, "Not a curse, not a wish. Just one promise. You'll remember this silence." By morning the group chat was on fire. "You overreacted. Dad was joking. You ruined Mom's birthday." One after another, the messages stacked like accusations against her silence. The Larson siblings were relentless, each one defending their father as if loyalty were an inherited reflex. Sienna sat at her small kitchen table, coffee untouched, watching her phone vibrate across the surface. Outside her apartment window, the gray Oregon morning matched her mood, flat, heavy, indifferent. When the knock came, it wasn't gentle. She opened the door to find Bradley Joseph Larson, standing there in his pressed slacks and weekend jacket, jaw tight. Behind him hovered her mother Elaine, still in her cardigan from the night before, and her brother Aiden, phone in hand like a bailiff recording evidence. Bradley didn't wait for permission to enter. "This has gone on long enough," he announced, his voice filling the small space. "You embarrassed your mother," stormed out like a child. "And for what? Because someone made a joke." Sienna folded her arms. "You didn't make a joke, Dad. You made a point, and made sure everyone laughed while you did it. That's your problem," he said, turning toward her mother for support. "She can't take a joke." Elaine's eyes were damp. "Sweetheart, he didn't mean it that way." "You know how your father is." Sienna smiled faintly. "Yes, I do." Her brother Aiden stepped forward. "Look, we all have bad nights. Just say you're sorry and come by later." "Mom's been crying." Bradley grunted. "Exactly. Let's not drag this out any longer. It's embarrassing for everyone." Embarrassing. That word hit harder than any insult. It was how her father saw her entire life, not disappointing, not rebellious, just embarrassing. Her hand tightened on the doorknob. "You've never respected what I do, Dad. Not once. You only call it work when it makes a good story for someone else's dinner table." "That's ridiculous," he said, dismissing her words with a wave. "You quit a stable career to play around on a laptop. If you'd stayed at Frost and Lynn Media, you'd have something real by now." The mention of her old job, the one she'd left 18 months ago, brought a flicker of heat behind her ribs. Frost and Lynn had drained her soul for nearly a decade, stealing weekends and health in exchange for a paycheck and polite condescension. She'd left to build something that mattered. But to him, leaving was failure. "I'm building something real," she said. Her voice steady. Bradley gave a short, humorless laugh. From your couch. The silence that followed stretched tight. Even Aiden looked uncomfortable. Elaine fidgeted with her purse strap, whispering, "Please, Sienna, he didn't come here to fight." "Yes, he did," she said softly. "He just didn't expect me to stop playing along." For the first time, her father faltered. The script wasn't working. His daughter, the one who used to shrink into apology at the first sign of his temper, wasn't shrinking. "Please leave," she said, opening the door wider. Bradley blinked. "What?" "You heard me." Elaine's eyes widened. "Sienna, Mom, I love you." She interrupted gently. "But I can't keep pretending this is normal. Please just go home." Aiden's mouth opened, then closed. He slipped his phone into his pocket and looked at the floor. Bradley's face turned red. "You're making a mistake." "I already made it," she said. "For 33 years. He hesitated, then stepped past her without another word. The sound of his shoes hard against the laminate floor. Elaine followed, whispering tearful apologies that dissolved into the hallway. Aiden was last. For a brief second, he paused, meeting her eyes. "She didn't deserve that," he murmured. Sienna didn't answer. She simply closed the door behind him and leaned against it, heart pounding in the silence they left behind. The quiet felt unnatural at first, too big for one person. Then slowly it turned into something else. Relief. She brewed a fresh cup of coffee, sat back down, and opened her laptop. The screen glowed to life, a list of pending client proposals waiting. She inhaled deeply and began typing, ignoring the phone buzzing beside her. Outside, a drizzle began to fall. Raindrops streaked down the glass, like punctuation marks to a story she was finally rewriting. In the Larson household, she knew the narrative would already be changing. Sienna's gone dramatic again. She'll come around. But she wouldn't. Not this time. That night, she muted the family group chat. The relief was instant, almost physical. Her apartment was small, her income still unpredictable, but for the first time in her adult life, she had peace, and she would protect that peace, like it was oxygen. The first few weeks after the confrontation passed in silence. No calls, no visits, just an occasional read receipt in the family group chat that made Sienna's stomach tighten, but she didn't message back. She poured her focus into what she could control: work. Her one-bedroom apartment in East Brookvale became an office. The dining table turned into a workstation, covered in printouts and coffee mugs. Each morning she brewed the same dark roast and opened her laptop at 7 a.m., her hair tied back, her mind sharp. The consulting business she'd started, Larson & Company Brand Strategy, had begun as a gamble. She had 2 clients then: a struggling boutique furniture store and a local fitness studio on the verge of closing. Both came from word of mouth, and both were desperate. Sienna promised results they could measure, not just pretty logos. She stayed up nights, rewriting ad copy, designing campaigns, and building the sort of brand presence that big agencies overcharged for. Within 6 months, the fitness studio doubled its membership. The furniture store was featured in the Portland Home and Design Quarterly as a comeback story, built on smart branding. The irony wasn't lost on her. While her father mocked her pajama job, companies were paying her more than she'd earned in any corporate year. Still, every check she deposited felt like a whisper, instead of a shout: quiet wins, measured progress, revenge in installments. Her next big client came from a chance encounter in the coffee shop downstairs. Gatel Lang, owner of a nearly bankrupt outdoor gear line, overheard her on a client call and asked for a consultation. His voice carried exhaustion. "If this quarter tanks, I'm done," he said. Sienna reviewed his marketing materials, identified the disconnect, and built a rebranding plan that balanced authenticity with storytelling. When Peterson Outdoors launched the campaign 3 months later, online sales climbed 38%. Gail sent flowers and a handwritten note: "You saved my company." It was the first time anyone had said those words to her. By late spring, she was making enough to consider an office space. One morning, while driving through Portland's Arts District, she noticed a vacant studio with floor-to-ceiling windows and a discreet for lease sign. The rent was steep, $2,400 a month, but her savings and growing client base made it feasible. Standing inside that empty shell, sunlight spilling across the concrete floor, she imagined her name on the frosted glass. Larson & Company. She signed the lease that afternoon. When she told her neighbor Rebecca Mays the news, the older woman clapped her hands in delight. "About time somebody in this building made something of herself," she teased, setting a loaf of sourdough on Sienna's counter. Rebecca's small gestures, fresh bread, morning coffee invites, cheerful greetings in the hallway, became the quiet companionship Sienna hadn't realized she missed. Weeks of renovation followed. Former colleagues, Dennis Howell and Mark Frost, offered to help paint on weekends. They arrived in paint-splattered jeans with takeout boxes and wine. Laughter echoed through the space, as the walls transformed from bare gray to soft ivory. For once, teamwork didn't feel like competition. By the end of summer, the studio was ready: walnut desks, brushed steel lamps, framed case studies lining the wall. It smelled of fresh paint and possibility. That same evening, while Sienna was arranging flowers in the reception area, an ivory envelope slid through the mail slot. Her pulse quickened when she saw the familiar cursive handwriting. The invitation read: "You're cordially invited to celebrate the engagement of Aidan Larson and Gracelyn Fisher. Saturday, June 12th, at 7 p.m. Her hands trembled, not from surprise, but irony. June 12th was the exact date she'd chosen for her studio's launch event. The overlap couldn't be coincidence. Attached was a handwritten note: "Hope you'll come, Sienna. Family wouldn't be complete without you." The word hope looked harmless, but it stung like sarcasm. For several minutes she stared at the card. Her mind replayed her father's words at the dinner table. The laughter, the text messages accusing her of being dramatic. They still saw her as the one who needed to come back, not the one who'd moved forward. That night, she made a decision that felt like destiny disguised as timing. She would keep her launch date exactly as planned. Let the world see what she'd built. Let the Larsons toast themselves while the quiet daughter unveiled a brand empire downtown. In the days that followed, invitations went out, not to family but to clients, local entrepreneurs, and a journalist from the Portland Business Chronicle. Rebecca helped address envelopes. Denise designed a minimalist gold foil card that read Studio Launch, June 12. The quiet builder has arrived. Sienna pinned one to the studio wall beside her father's photo, taken years ago when he received his Business Excellence Award. She didn't hate him, she just wanted him to know what respect looked like. The night before the launch, she stood in the empty studio, lights dimmed, city hum fading outside. The quiet felt different now, earned, not imposed. "This is my apology," she whispered, her voice steady. But not the kind they expected. June 12 arrived, dressed like perfection, bright skies, cool wind, and that electric kind of morning when even the light seems to hum. At the Larson house across town, flowers were being arranged for Aiden and Graceland's engagement party. Elaine was fussing over seating charts, Bradley was perfecting his toast. They'd all assumed Sienna would appear, suitably contrite, smiling her way back into the fold. "She'll show," Bradley had said confidently. "She just needs to cool off." But miles away, under the wide glass windows of her new downtown studio, Sienna wasn't cooling off. She was heating up. By 10 a.m., Larson and Company brand strategy buzzed with life. Waiters arranged champagne glasses. Floral arrangements framed the entrance. A clean banner hung near the reception desk. Grand opening. Larson and Company studio launch. The air smelled of polished wood, espresso and success. Sienna wore a tailored cream pantsuit, elegant, quiet, and commanding. The kind of outfit that didn't beg for attention, but claimed it anyway. She'd spent the morning rehearsing her welcome speech, though she knew she wouldn't need it. The proof was already in the room. Clients began arriving first. Girl Lang shook her hand warmly. "You saved my company," he said again, almost in disbelief. "We're expanding our line because of you." A photographer from the Portland Business Chronicle hovered nearby, snapping shots of Sienna greeting guests. A reporter, Bianca Rios, approached with a notebook. "You're quite the mystery in this city," she said with a smile. "A woman who built a consultancy from her apartment and is now shaping half the downtown business scene. How does it feel?" Sienna smiled softly. "It feels earned." By noon the space pulsed with energy. Business owners, designers, and a few curious neighbors from the district mingled among hors d'oeuvres and glasses of rosé. There was a rhythm to it all, laughter, camera clicks, clinking glasses, then a sudden hush. From the doorway came the sharp echo of heels. Brooke Larson Moss, Sienna's sister, stood framed in the light, wearing a pale blue dress that probably cost more than the studio's rent. Her lips curled into a tight smile, as her eyes swept across the room. "Sienna," she said, loud enough for heads to turn. "I thought I'd find you here." Every guest nearby went quiet. Sienna didn't flinch. "Brooke," she said calmly, "what brings you downtown?" "I came to tell you Mom's heartbroken. And Dad, well, he's humiliated. It's your brother's engagement day, and Her gaze swept the polished walls, the camera crew, the elegant buffet, playing entrepreneur. Sienna met her stare. "No," she said evenly. "I'm working." Bianca, the reporter, was close enough to hear, and subtly raised her phone to record. Brooke gave a sharp laugh, the kind that cracked under its own nervousness. "You know what Dad says, you can't fix family with an invoice." "Maybe not," Sienna replied, "but you can fix your life with one." Gasps rippled around them. The quiet murmurs of guests, clients who had witnessed the exchange, turned sympathetic. Some smiled discreetly. Others looked at Sienna with a kind of respect Brooke had never seen in her direction. Before Brooke could fire back, Gail Lang stepped forward, champagne in hand. "This entrepreneur," he said firmly, "helped me save 30 jobs. That's 30 families who'll eat this month because of her so-called pajama job." The reporter scribbled something rapidly. Cameras flashed. Brooke froze, face flushing pink under the weight of unexpected witnesses. "Maybe I'll tell Dad that," Sienna said quietly. Brooke hesitated, then turned and walked out, her heels clicking a staccato rhythm of retreat. Sienna exhaled, the tension leaving her shoulders. The crowd quickly returned to conversation, and the buzz resumed stronger than before. Hours passed like sunlight through glass, steady, warm, unstoppable. The launch was a success. The article's draft proofed live on the Chronicle's feed. The quiet powerhouse, how one woman redefined success without family support. Later, as the afternoon softened into evening, Sienna stepped outside with a flute of champagne. Downtown Portland glowed beneath her. She watched cars drift past and thought of the family dinner underway across town. The laughter, the toasts, the missing chair no one dared mention. Her phone buzzed. Dozens of messages filled the family chat. Brooke had already shared photos. Bradley. Choosing work over family. Again. Eden. It actually looks nice. Sienna. Congrats. Elaine. The space looks lovely, sweetie. I just wish you'd been here for your brother. Bradley again. Miles' engagement was supposed to be the priority. Some things matter more than work. And then quietly, from Gracelyn, the new fiancé. It's inspiring, what you've done. I hope we talk someday. Sienna locked her screen and slipped the phone into her purse. The messages didn't hurt the way they once did. They just confirmed what she already knew. Back inside, Bianca Rios raised her glass. Here's to the quiet ones, she said, smiling at Sienna. They build empires while everyone else is talking. Sienna clinked her glass gently. To proof, she replied. The laughter that followed was genuine, light. Nothing forced. For once the sound didn't sting. Outside, the city pulsed with life, and across town, the Larsons were lifting their glasses to a future they couldn't see coming. Because tonight they weren't the only ones throwing a party. The morning after the launch, the air felt crisp, new, like the first clean page of a long-kept journal. Sunlight poured through the studio windows, glinting off champagne glasses and name tags left scattered across desks. A few confetti ribbons still clung to the carpet. Sienna arrived early, barefoot in quiet reverence. Her pulse slowed as she surveyed the aftermath. Success tangible and unarguable. Her laptop pinged with new messages. Dozens of them. The family group chat was alive again, vibrating with indignation and confusion. Bradley, you owe your mother an apology for what you pulled yesterday. Elaine, please call us sweetheart. Your father's hurt. Eden. You could have at least texted Miles. Good luck. Brooke, you embarrassed the family twice now. Do you ever stop? Sienna stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. She didn't type a word, instead she opened her browser to the Portland Business Chronicle. There it was. Front page. The quiet powerhouse. How Sienna Larson built a brand empire. From her couch her photo filled the upper half of the page. Standing in her studio, arms crossed, confidence lighting her face like dawn. The article detailed her clients' transformations, the measurable results, the way local businesses had been reborn under her guidance. Quotes from Gail Lang, Denise Howell, and several others filled the columns with words that felt surreal to read about herself. She smiled faintly, copied the link, and pasted it into the family group chat. No caption, no emojis, just the article. Then she turned her phone face down. Spy afternoon. The phone buzzed non-stop, missed calls from her mother, from Aiden, even from Brooke, though that one surprised her most. Sienna ignored them all, choosing instead to dive into work. Her inbox overflowed with inquiries, new contracts, collaboration offers, an invitation to speak at the Oregon Women in Business Leadership Forum. The Chronicle's story had spread faster than she could keep up with. By the end of the week, Forbes Northwest reached out for an interview request. Revenge wasn't the word she would have chosen for it. This was something else, justice, maybe. The balance finally tilting in her favor after years of mockery. 2 weeks later, she stood backstage at the downtown Hilton Ballroom, microphone clipped, palms steady. The leadership forum was packed, executives, founders and investors filling every seat. The moderator Fatima Gold smiled warmly at her. Next we'll hear from Sienna Larson, founder of Larson & Company Brand Strategy, on building success without traditional support systems. The applause began before Sienna even stepped out. As she took her seat on the panel, she scanned the crowd out of habit, and froze. 6 rows back, her father sat stiffly in a dark suit. Elaine beside him, Brooke and Aiden too, all 4 looked out of place among the professionals. Bradley's jaw was set, expression unreadable. Sienna's throat went dry, but she kept her composure. The moderator's voice pulled her back. Sienna, in your experience, what's the hardest part about building a business from the ground up? She smiled slightly. It's not the building, she said. It's the believing in something no one else sees. Sometimes not even your family. A quiet murmur moved through the audience. Cameras clicked, Fatima leaned forward. And what kept you going when support was scarce? Sienna glanced toward her father, her voice steady. The realization that silence isn't always surrender. Sometimes it's strategy. Applause erupted, polite at first, then growing until the sound filled the ballroom. She didn't look at her family again. She didn't need to. After the event, the crowd thinned, and she slipped into the hallway toward the exit. The air smelled faintly of perfume and hotel polish. Behind her, a familiar voice said, "You've built something real." She turned. Her father stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes tired but softer than she remembered. "Thank you," she said simply. "I was proud of you today," he added after a pause. "Even if I don't understand it all." Sienna held his gaze. "I don't need you to understand, Dad. I just needed you to stop belittling what you never tried to learn." His expression flickered, something between guilt and pride, but words failed him. "They expected an apology after I walked out," she said gently, echoing her own truth. "But I sent them the article instead." Bradley nodded once, then looked away. "I'll see you at Thanksgiving, maybe," she said. "If we can meet halfway." And with that she walked past him, heels tapping against marble, each step lighter than the last. 3 months later, Larson and Company doubled its office space. The studio now overlooked the Willamette River, a panoramic view of Portland glowing beneath. A 5-person team worked under her, their laughter echoing through the hallways she once painted alone. That Friday, the office celebrated the firm's first $1 million quarter. Glasses clinked, music played low, and the mood was all warmth and pride. Her neighbor Rebecca arrived carrying lemon bars. "To the pajama girl who fooled the world," she joked. Sienna laughed. "To the woman who brought bread when the world mocked me." They toasted. Later that night she drove home and found a cream-colored envelope in her mailbox. The handwriting was her mother's. Inside was an invitation, Thanksgiving dinner, the Larson home. Beneath, in careful cursive, "We miss you." Sienna held the card for a long time. She wasn't sure if she'd go, but she smiled. Because for once the decision felt like hers. She looked around her apartment, the framed Chronicle article, the award from the Leadership Forum, the glowing skyline beyond her window. Her revenge had never needed a stage. It had needed only one thing: proof. The proof that silence could roar. The proof that walking out didn't mean failure. The proof that sometimes, the sweetest apology you can give is success itself.